All right, welcome. Today we are going to crack open one of the most influential and, controversial theories of all time. We're going to try and understand the hidden parts of our own minds, all according to the man himself, Sigmund Freud.
Why do you sometimes snap at someone you love for no reason? Or have those completely bizarre dreams? Or maybe you have a fear that just makes no logical sense at all. Well, we're going to explore the idea that the answers are buried deep, deep beneath the surface.
And that's his big radical idea, that we aren't really the masters of our own house. Nope. Instead, he said we're driven by these powerful forces in a part of our mind that we can't even get to. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, first things first, we need a map of the mind, at least as Freud saw it. He called this his topographical theory. I want you to think of your mind as a giant iceberg. This little slice right here, the conscious mind, that's just the tiny tip you can see above the water. It's everything you're aware of right this second. The preconscious, that's kind of right below the surface. You can pull up those memories if you try. But the real behemoth, the vast, vast majority of the iceberg hidden underwater, well, that's the unconscious.
Now, what's really wild is that this isn't just some dusty old storage room for memories. Freud believed the unconscious is this dynamic, super powerful force. It's like a cauldron of our deepest instincts, our secret desires, our oppressed traumas, and it's actively shaping everything we do and think, all without our permission.
So who exactly is living inside this mind of ours? Well, according to Freud's next big idea, the structural theory, there are three main characters, and they're locked in this constant, dramatic battle for control. First, meet the id. This is the impulsive, primal part of you. It's been there since the day you were born. It's pure instinct. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. The id runs completely on what Freud called the pleasure principle. Then, on the other side, you've got the superego. Think of this as your inner moral compass, right? It's the voice of your parents, your teachers, and society constantly whispering or maybe even shouting about what you should be doing. It's a relentless perfectionist, the inner judge that loves to make you feel guilty. And then, caught right in the middle of this tug-of-war is the poor ego. The ego is the executive administrator, the rational part of you that has the impossible job of being the referee. It works on the reality principle, basically trying to find realistic ways to get the id what it wants without ticking off the superego's strict moral code.
And this slide just lays out that whole internal battle perfectly. You can see the id is all about pleasure and instant gratification, while the superego is obsessed with perfection and morality. And there's the ego, stuck in the middle, just trying to find some balance based on reality. It's literally like your mind is a seesaw. The id and the superego are on opposite ends, constantly pushing and pulling, and the ego is that little piece in the middle, the fulcrum, just desperately trying to keep things from tipping over.
So what happens when that balancing act just gets too stressful? When the conflict between the id and the superego creates way too much anxiety? Well, the ego has a secret weapon. It calls in the defense squad.
These defense mechanisms are these really clever, totally unconscious tricks the ego uses to protect us. It basically lies to us. It distorts reality just enough so we don't feel so anxious. Now, in the short term, this is super helpful. It keeps us going. But if we start relying on them too much, they can stop us from ever really dealing with the actual problem.
And here's the thing. We all use these all the time, and we don't even realize it. Let's just take a look at a few of the most powerful ones.
First up is repression. Freud called this one the granddaddy of all defense mechanisms. This isn't just forgetting something. This is the ego involuntarily shoving a traumatic thought or memory so deep into the unconscious that you literally can't access it. It's the mind's way of protecting itself from just overwhelming pain.
Next is sublimation, which is actually a pretty healthy one. This is when the ego takes an impulse that's not okay, like aggression, and redirects it into something that is socially acceptable, even productive. You're basically channeling all that raw energy into something constructive.
And then there's displacement. This is when you have this really powerful feeling about someone, but you unleash it on a totally different, safer target. You're absolutely furious with your boss, but you can't yell at them, right? So you go home and you pick a fight with your partner over something totally small. That's displacement.
Okay, so if all this really important stuff is locked away in the unconscious, how in the world can we ever know what's in there? Well, Freud believed the unconscious is constantly trying to send us messages. He basically became a master detective, always on the hunt for clues.
He famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. He argued that every single dream has two levels. There's the manifest content. That's the bizarre story you remember when you wake up. But underneath that is the latent content. That's the hidden, symbolic meaning, the true wish or fear that your unconscious is trying to tell you.
And he saw clues popping up everywhere else, too, in what we now call Freudian slips, where you accidentally say what you're really thinking. He saw it in jokes, which he thought allowed us to express forbidden thoughts. And he saw it in therapy techniques like free association, where you just say anything and everything that pops into your head, no filter, to try and reveal those unconscious patterns.
So, let's fast forward. How have these ideas, born over 100 years ago with patients lying on a couch, actually influenced therapy we know today?
Well, classical psychoanalysis was intense. It was a lengthy, really expensive process. So modern psychodynamic therapy takes Freud's core principles, the power of the unconscious, the importance of our past, but it adapts them. It's a much more focused approach. It's usually shorter, it's done face-to-face, and it often targets specific, current problems, which just makes it way more practical for today's world.
But the really crucial point here is that the main goal is still incredibly relevant. It's this idea that simply talking about our struggles, bringing those unconscious feelings out into the open, can help us purge those emotions and lead to real healing. Freud called this catharsis, and it's the original talking cure.
Okay, so after journeying through the depths of the Freudian mind, through the iceberg and the inner seesaw, what's the one single idea you should really hold on to?
It's really this. Your conscious self, the you that you think you know, might just be a passenger. There are powerful hidden forces, your primal instincts, your inner morals, your buried memories, and they are all wrestling for the steering wheel. Which leaves us with a fascinating, and maybe a little unsettling, question to think about. Who or what is really driving you